All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to dive into an objective, chronological explainer detailing the historical reality behind the catastrophic rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. We are going to rely strictly on the historical record to understand exactly how a seemingly insignificant guy managed to construct a totalitarian regime, orchestrate literal global devastation, and ultimately engineer his own complete demise. We're breaking this explainer down into 5 main parts: the birth of a nobody, radicalization in the party, forging the Fuhrer myth, war and the Holocaust, and finally, his descent in the bunker. Part 1. The birth of a nobody, spanning 1889 to 1905. Think about his early years for a second. This was a boy born in the tiny Austrian border town of Braunau am Inn, and by all accounts, he was considered a lazy, entirely indifferent student. His early path was just marked by profound failure and tragedy. After his father died, a young Hitler moved to Vienna dreaming of becoming an artist. But in 1907, the Academy of Fine Arts actually rejected him for a lack of originality. That very same year, he lost his mother to breast cancer. Fast forward to 1909, and he was completely homeless in Vienna, literally sleeping on public benches and barely scraping by, selling these hand-painted postcards. It's a really stark contrast when you look at his childhood environment. On one hand, you have his father, Alois. He was an aggressive man who handed out severe, regular beatings. Beatings that his sister later noted Adolf would just take in this chilling, stoic silence. But on the other hand, you have his mother, Clara. He absolutely adored her. He saw her as his ultimate protector, and he actually carried her photograph in his pocket right up until the day he died. Moving into Part 2, Radicalization and the Party, from 1914 to 1933. So how exactly does a marginalized, homeless guy find such a dangerous political purpose? Well, during World War I, Hitler actually found a sense of belonging. He served as a decorated dispatch runner on the Western Front. But when Germany surrendered in 1918, he was completely shocked. Instead of accepting the reality of a military defeat, he fully embraced this incredibly dangerous stab-in-the-back myth. This was a false conspiracy theory blaming Jewish people and Marxists for supposedly betraying Germany from within. And this toxic lie really became the absolute bedrock of his entire worldview.
After the war, his political rise was surprisingly fast. He was initially hired as an army intelligence informant just to infiltrate the German Workers' Party, but he ended up completely taking it over and transforming it into the Nazi Party. Now, his first big move, the 1923 attempt to seize power in the Beer Hall Putsch, was a total failure. But by 1933, by expertly exploiting the sheer economic misery of the Great Depression, he managed to get himself appointed Chancellor of Germany.
Now here is a detail that's absolutely crucial. That failed Beer Hall Putsch in 1923, it landed him a 13-month sentence for treason at Landsberg prison, and that gave him uninterrupted time to dictate Mein Kampf, which, by the way, wasn't just some political book, it was a terrifyingly clear blueprint. He literally laid out his demand for Lebensraum, or living space in the East, and explicitly documented his genocidal hatred, referring to Jewish people in horrifying, completely dehumanizing terms. The warning signs weren't hidden, they were right there in print.
Part 3. Forging the Fuhrer myth.
Once he had secured totalitarian power, the regime desperately needed to manufacture a flawless public illusion. Joseph Goebbels essentially created this myth of the infallible soldier monk, portraying him as a tireless genius who sacrificed his entire personal life for Germany. But the historical reality, completely different. He was actually a lazy dilettante who rarely got out of bed before noon. On top of that, he kept his 14-year relationship with his mistress, Eva Braun, an absolute state secret. He was terrified that if the public knew he had a partner, it would completely ruin his idol status. To keep that massive facade from crumbling, the Nazi propaganda machine turned to cutting-edge technology. They were total pioneers in using aircraft for campaigning, literally dropping out of the sky to project this image of omnipresence. They also pushed the highly affordable People's Radio into everyday German homes, making sure there was just constant ideological saturation. And of course, they used that cinematic Hollywood-style staging at the mass rallies in Nuremberg, which were immortalized by Leni Riefenstahl to present him as this messiah-like figure. Honestly, it was a dark masterclass in mass manipulation.
Part 4, War and the Holocaust, spanning 1939 to 1945.
If you look at the actual trajectory of the Second World War, it completely exposes his military leadership. Early on, sure, the Fuhrer myth seemed validated. His blitzkrieg strategy crushed France in just 6 weeks in 1940. But that early success was quickly eclipsed by fatal, hubris-fueled mistakes. I'm talking about massive strategic blunders, like the failed air battle over Britain, the absolute disaster of invading the Soviet Union in 1941, and his unilateral declaration of war against the United States. And while waging that disastrous global war, the regime was concurrently carrying out its absolute darkest reality. The sheer, incomprehensible scale of the atrocity is grounded right here in this horrifying historical fact. Approximately 6 million Jews, alongside millions of other victims, were systematically murdered in industrial-scale death camps. Formalized at the Wannsee Conference in 1942, this was the literal execution of that terrifying blueprint he had dictated years earlier in his prison cell.
And to hide this monstrous reality from the German public, the regime used incredibly cruel deception. Hitler purposefully avoided signing any compromising documents related to the final solution. Instead, the regime relied heavily on sterile code words, like saying people were dealt with appropriately, just to mask the genocide. They even went as far as filming fake model camps, like Theresienstadt, showing things like swimming pools and cinemas, all just to trick the public into believing deportations were humane resettlements.
Finally, Part 5, Descent in the Bunker, April 1945. The end was just intensely claustrophobic. It happened deep beneath the ruined, burning streets of Berlin. Witnesses who were actually inside the Fuhrer bunker, which was this complex of 20 rooms buried 8 meters underground, described the atmosphere as exactly that, a vision out of hell. It was a sweaty, dismal tomb. The mechanical ventilation system gave everyone constant headaches, and there was this pervasive, inescapable smell of damp and mold. And down there, entirely disconnected from the reality of the war above, the dictator was literally issuing frantic orders to armies that no longer existed. By this point, that whole propaganda myth of the robust military genius completely shattered. The sources note his physical reality was staggering. He was a shadow of his former self. He was suffering from advanced Parkinson's disease, causing his left arm to shake uncontrollably. Just to function on a basic level, he was heavily dependent on his personal physician, Dr. Morell, who was pumping him full of a massive daily cocktail of nearly 90 different medications and injections.
Those last days in April 1945 were just a rapid descent into pure paranoia. On his 56th birthday, he made his final trip up to the surface, just to award medals to actual boy soldiers. By April 22nd, he suffered a massive breakdown, declaring for the very first time that everything is lost. Over the following week, he flew into these furious rages as he found out that his closest allies, guys like Goering and Himmler, were desperately trying to defect and surrender to the Allies behind his back.
The final act happened incredibly fast. In the early hours, he officially married Eva Braun. Then, he dictated a political testament where he refused all responsibility and once again blamed Jewish people for the war. On April 30th, with Soviet troops literally just 500 meters away, he committed suicide by a gunshot to the head, while Braun took cyanide. Following his very strict orders, because he was terrified of being displayed as a trophy, their bodies were immediately carried up to the garden and burned with petrol in a bomb crater. Now, here's a fascinating historical footnote. Even though Soviet SMERSH agents definitively discovered and identified his burned remains, they confirmed it through his unique gold dental bridges, Joseph Stalin deliberately decided to sow doubt. Using it as a political weapon, Stalin lied to the world for years, suggesting Hitler might have somehow escaped to the West. He did this purposefully to create friction and suspicion among the Allied powers. As we wrap up this explainer, having separated the cold historical facts from the manufactured illusions, we're really left to grapple with a chilling question. How did a carefully manufactured myth successfully mask such catastrophic incompetence and pure evil from an entire nation until it was entirely too late? It's a stark, terrifying reminder of the absolute power of totalitarian propaganda, and it's exactly why understanding objective history is so incredibly vital for us today.